Hello, this is Heather Hodlin, and I'm going to be explaining loops. We will begin in our picture.java file. Here I have written three methods that will create three different filters that we will later use to modify an image. Beginning with our first method being filter1, we're going to use a 1D approach and a for loop that will set all green components to 0 for each pixel. Beginning with our method header of public void filter1. Next, we declare our array and name it pixel array with the line pixel array equals this dot get pixels. It is important to note that we're using get pixels, which is plural because we are using a 1D approach. On line 501, we begin our for loop with for pixel array. This is stating for every pixel object, which we happen to name pixel, within the pixel array, we want this for loop to execute. This is a very simple for loop. As you can see, it only has one line within its body, being line 503, which is pixel.setGreen0. This line is going to set the green value of the pixel to 0. This loop is going to execute numerous times as it goes through every single pixel within the array for the image. Next, we have our second method named filter2, which is also going to use a 1D approach, but this time with a while loop. We're going to set the blue component to half of the red value, and we're going to set the red value to twice the blue value. This sounds complicated, but it is simple when you look at the code. The modification that we're going to be doing here is only going to be used on every other pixel. So we begin with our method header of public void filter2. We use the same line to declare our array pixel array as last time. Then we also declare a pixel object named pixel and set it to null. Then we declare our variable I and initialize it at 0. I is going to be our index value here. On line 515, we begin our while loop with while I is less than pixel array.length. So this is stating that for as long as the index that we have determined that starts at 0 is less than the length of the pixel array, we want our loop to execute. The body of our loop begins on line 517. It states pixel equals pixel array I. This is setting our pixel object that we name pixel to a specific pixel within the array deemed I. Next, we're going to declare two different variables, value R, which is going to give us the red value of the pixel, and value B, which is going to give us the blue value. Next, we're going to change these, or set these new values, Line 520, we use pixel.setBlue, and then we write for the value that we wanted to set it to, we're going to put int value R over 2. This is going to set it to an integer value, which is equal to the old red value divided by 2. Then we set the red value to 2 times the old blue value. It is important to look at line 522, however. We write I equals I plus 2. Here we're going to be increasing our index value every time the loop executes by 2 so that we skip over a pixel. This line is what makes our image only change every other pixel. And so this is very important. And next we have our final method, which we named filter3, which this time is going to use a 2D approach, and it consists of a nested for loop that is going to mirror the top half of the photo onto the bottom half of the photo. We start with our method header of public void filter3. We declare two variables, height, which is from this dot get height, and our mirror point variable, which is the height over 2, so that it's halfway. Next, we just declare two pixel objects being top pixel and bottom pixel, and I'll initialize them to null. Now we begin our first for loop on line 535. We write for int x equals 0, x is less than get width, x plus plus. So this is stating that we start out with our x value being 0, and for as long as x is less than our width, we want our for loop to continue executing. X plus plus means for each time the loop executes, increase the x value by 1. This is how our loop is going to loop through each of our columns. Next, you see we start the body of that loop on line 537, but it's important to see that we're starting with another for loop, but this time it's inside the first. This is our nested loop. And the nested loop begins by for int y equals 0, y is less than mere point, y plus plus. It's a similar format. This time we're dealing with our rows though. And we start at 0, and then for as long as our y value is less than our mere point, which if you recall is our halfway point, we want our loop to continue executing, and at each time it executes, we want it to increase by 1 to move to the next row. Then the body of this begins on 540 with top pixel equals get pixel, which is not plural because we're using a 2D approach, and the parameter list is the specific coordinates, x, y. Next, we have our bottom pixel, which equals get pixel x, height minus 1 minus y. Here, these parameters entered are going to be our x value, which every time this loop is executing, it's still going to be 1. And our y value is going to be changing. But with our height minus 1 minus y, we're stating that we want this to be located at the mirror image of the top pixel. Then we set the color of this bottom pixel so that it is the same as our top pixel. So we're mirroring it to the bottom half. And this loop, the second loop, the y for the y values, is going to repeat over and over and over until our loop determines that y is greater than our mirror point. Then the loop will no longer execute, and then it'll go back up to line 535, and x will then increase to 1. And from there, we'll go down to our next loop of 538, on line 538, and start with the y's all over again. And from there, once that is done with all the y values, it'll go back up to the x. So if you can see, our nested loop here is going to start with an x, do a bunch of y's, increase by 1x, do a bunch of y's, increase x by 1. So y is executed very rapidly. Now let's go test this in our M4 explain file. Here our file has our typical file header, public class header statements, and our static void statement. As you can see, I'm going to import a wedding photo using our file chooser method, and I'm going to create 3 copies of the original, with our original being named picture or pic 1. Next, on line 24, we're going to use our 3 filters by calling the methods. On pic 2, we'll use the method filter 1. Pic 3, we'll use the method filter 2. Pic 4, we'll use the method filter 3. Just to make it easier to view all of these images that we are now modifying, I'm going to call an old method that has been previously written called collage 4, which will create a collage with the original photo being pic 1, and then the 3 modified photos next to it. Let's do that by compiling, running. I must select my photo. see our original photo is the first panel, and then our second photo that used a for loop is right here. And then our third photo is our while loop that changed every other pixel. And then our final photo is our nested for loop, which mirrored the image from the top to the bottom. Thank you.